Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of In the Corner. I'm Cash. Today we have episode 148, and got a pretty good weekend of fights coming up. And before we get into them, let's just start with probably the most good news of the week, and that is that Floyd Mayweather has agreed to a professional fight with Manny Pacquiao. As you know, there was a lot of controversy around this. The fight was announced as a professional fight in the Sphere on Netflix September 19th, or no, September was it 19th or 12th? I think it's September 19th. But yeah, so the fight was announced, and then Floyd starts going around saying it's an exhibition. And then Team Pacquiao was like, "Nuh-uh, that's not what it is. You signed 3 contracts," which again, I don't really get what 3 contracts are, but you signed 3 contracts. We've already been paid cash in advance. Like the fight is a professional fight. We are like pretty much booked for the Sphere. What are you talking about? And they need him to retract the statements, or else it's going to get legal. So there's been a whole lot of talk about that. Seems like the fight is no longer going to happen. Then we hear on, I believe it was Monday, saying that Mayweather had a deadline of end of Tuesday for the fight to get done. For them to officially sit down and say, okay, let's re-agree on all these things just so we're all clear. And so I was like, okay, usually when we see a deadline, that's when you know it's just not going to happen, these ultimatum things, especially when we hear about it one day before. It's like, yeah, okay, so the fight's not going to happen. Well, somehow they sat down, they got the deal done, and we heard Wednesday that, yes, the fight is officially back on, and it is going to be a real professional boxing match. Floyd Mayweather has agreed to such. And I'm still just so surprised that he's actually coming out of retirement nearly a decade later and risking his O. He has a perfect 50-0 record, and he's trying to, make it 51-0. Obviously, you do see Floyd Mayweather as a favorite, but Manny Pacquiao has been more active in recent times, particularly at an actual professional world-class level. Floyd Mayweather has not fought professionally since 2017. Manny Pacquiao fought in a world title fight last year. So there is some interest with this rematch. There definitely is. And doing it at the Sphere, doing it on Netflix, I'm very excited to see it happen. I think it's going to be a huge spectacle, and I still can't believe just the idea that they're coming back so many years later and doing another fight. Again, we still have a lot of time before then. Obviously, we know that Mayweather had a exhibition scheduled with Mike Tyson that was supposed to be next weekend, by the way, that everyone was talking like it's going to happen. That's not happening. And meanwhile, Manny was supposed to have an exhibition this weekend that was announced, but that one did not happen. Floyd does still have that exhibition in Greece in the summer. I don't know if that one happens. I hope it doesn't. I hope that they can just fully focus on this Manny Pacquiao fight. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. All right, let's get into the weekend's action. Got a few good cards, starting with what was meant to be a great fight. We're meant to have Callum Smith defending his WBO interim light heavyweight title against David Morrell in Liverpool. It's going to be a huge fight, probably the best fight on this calendar month. And then Callum Smith gets an injury, and the fight is off. It hasn't even been postponed, just straight up canceled. We don't know if they're going to rebook that one. It took a while to make that fight happen. I don't know what the plan is, how long his recovery table is, but he's already been out for over a year. However, Matchroom decided to keep the card going. And you know what? Good for them to keep the show going. It's getting a lot of hate because it's definitely not the best. Ben Whittaker will now be headlining, so he's one of their biggest stars still. He's not in with a great opponent. His opponent is Braian Suarez, who is 21-4, 20 wins by knockout. So kid can definitely punch. But if you're looking at his record for his last 8 fights, it's just been loss, win, loss, win, loss, win. And 3 of those losses do come by knockout. So I can very much see him taking another loss here to Ben Whittaker. I don't know if I love his chances. He has fought Lyndon Arthur. I know that fight was supposed to be kind of a war and kind of close. He got knocked out by Albert Ramirez in the first round. I expect Ben Whittaker to get another stoppage here. I think he needs it. And then, should Ben Whittaker win, he goes on to the June 27th Zayas versus Boots card and gets to make his U.S. debut, hopefully against a better opponent. But I'm not super mad with this opponent choice. I at first thought it was going to be like an 8-rounder, so this is still decent. And obviously, David Morrell offered to fight him on this card, and they chose not to. And I think that's probably a good idea for Whittaker. I don't know if he's ready for that level of competition yet. We were meant to even have Peter McGrail on the card, and he's not even on it. So that's what I mean. You do have Ben Whittaker, but the undercard is very weak. Joe McGrail will be on the card fighting Aaron Hayden. And so that is a Central Area Super Bantamweight Championship. Both those guys are undefeated. So I mean, it's a 10-rounder. Should be kind of entertaining to watch. Molly McCann is back in her first 8-rounder, I think, fighting Ashley Johnson, who was 3-3. They're talking about her getting this like walkout and stuff. I think she's co-main event. So we'll see. And then you got Leo Tang back because they're a heavyweight guy. Steve Clark is on this card. It's not the best card. It's really not. But you know what? We're still getting it. The fighters still get to fight. They don't have their entire dates, and their entire training camps ruined just because one guy got injured. They all still get to fight, and that's good. Okay, let's talk about the MVP card. This is the first MVPW event actually on ESPN. I know that there was the Sky Sports one in the UK, but that was on ESPN Plus. It was during the day. This one is in the US. It's in New York City, and it's going to be live on, I think, main ESPN, which is pretty cool. So you got 2 world title fights. You got Alycia Baumgardner defending her unified super featherweight championships against Mi Re Shin. Shin went 10 rounds with Caroline Dubois last year. Dubois dominated her for the first 7 or 8 rounds, and then Shin almost took her out of the fight in the last 2. That was what we saw. Caroline Dubois, really, her gas tank got tested, and Shin came out of nowhere. So I expect Shin, she could, pull some strings here and make it a good fight. Alycia Baumgardner, though, is world class. She's super good, pound for pound talent. This is 10 3-minute rounds, so a longer fight. So, we'll see. I mean, that was Shin's strength in the Caroline Dubois fight, is that she was able to go long and still hold that power and an ability late. But I think Alycia Baumgardner more than enough is. I'd like to see if she can get a stoppage, but I doubt it. After this, I really want to see Baumgardner get into a big fight. I feel like she's been fighting second-tier opposition for the longest time now. And I'm just ready to see her actually, step up and fight another champion. I want to see her fight Amanda Serrano. I don't know if that's happening, but Caroline Dubois, as I just mentioned, they have a lot of beef. They're one division apart. That's a great fight. I think there's lots of stuff out there that she can do, but I'd rather see that than the Mi Re Shin kind of fight. Co-main event is Shadasia Green making the first defense of her unified super middleweight titles against Lanny Daniels, who, of course, is coming off a loss to Claressa Shields. And I got to be honest, I like this fight. I think it's a good one. And Lanny Daniels actually also lost her last fight in Germany, which I didn't even hear about, and that was a few months ago. Lost almost every round. So, I mean, while Lanny Daniels, she used to be a world champion before the Claressa Shields days. Yeah, if I'm just being honest, I have to think Shadasia Green is a favorite. Looking at their recent run of form, I thought Shadasia Green looked fantastic against Savannah Marshall. That was a great win, a huge upset. So we'll see. Could be a good fight. I think this fight's actually a better matched fight than the main event is. But yeah, we'll just have to see. And then you've got Crystal Rosado fighting an undefeated opponent, Fernanda Reyes Delgado. That's an 8-rounder on the main card. Nat Dove is also on the main card. Is unfortunately Tam Tebow, the hardest hitting women's boxer around, maybe fell off this card. Her opponent had visa issues, so I really hope they can get her back out soon because I'm a huge fan of her. Then you've also got Jamal Harvey, who's their top prospect. He's on this card. And some other undefeated versus undefeated matchups, some of the MVP prospects shows. Yeah, I think it's overall a decent enough card. Lost a bit of its fights, but I think it'll be fun, and it's in New York City. Yeah, that's Friday night. Also Friday night, but in the UK, so Friday afternoon here, is Nathaniel Collins and Cristobal Lorente running it back. This is for the WBC featherweight title eliminator, so winner is going to be in very good position to fight one Shushu Carrington. The first fight was an awesome fight. It was one of the generally the best fights of the year. I wouldn't say it's like a fight of the year candidate or anything, but if I had to make a list of 20 to 30 great fights, this would probably be on it. I thought that Collins kind of deserved the win. It was really close, but I thought that he definitely edged it, which was interesting because the fight was in his backyard and he still didn't get the decision. It was a draw. So we're just going to have to see. If Lorente can start earlier in this fight, it'll be interesting. Last time Collins was dominating the first half of the fight, and then Lorente came really strong in the back half. So if Lorente can get started earlier, we may have seriously have a closer fight. But I am picking Collins to win this one. I think it's going to be another war. I'm a big fan of both the guys. Somebody's always got to go. Yeah, so looking forward to that. Also on the card, you have 2 British championships. You have Dylan Arbuckle versus Nico Levars in the co-main event. That's for the super bantamweight title, 9-0 versus 7-0-1. And then you've also got Royston Barney Smith stepping up and fighting for the British and Commonwealth super featherweight titles against Connor McIntosh, who is 10-2. So those are some pretty good fights. The co-main event is going to be Aston Brown versus Sam Gilly, which is a great fight. That one should be somebody's going to go out in that fight. Aston Brown is like a Scottish level guy who they've had on their cards, and he's got a lot of power. And then Sam Gilly is coming off the loss against Ishmael Davis, but before that, was British champion at 154, and now going up to middleweight. That's a really interesting fight. It's a good card. Marcus Sutherland is back. He obviously punches like a train. And then you've also got John Joe Kerrigan. I believe he's going to be on the main card. Some other prospects like Reece Lynch and stuff. Should be a good show in Scotland. The UFC is back in the Great North in Canada this weekend in Winnipeg. And I got to be honest, this is a pretty weak card. When they announced that Gilbert Burns versus Michael Malott was going to be on it, I was like, oh, okay, that's a cool, like maybe co-main event. No, that's the main event. I mean, Gilbert Burns, bro, when was the last time that this guy actually won a fight? Let's see. He is on a 4-fight losing streak. His last win was against Jorge Masvidal, and that was over 3 years ago. Since then, Bilal, JDM, Sean Brady, Michael Morales. So if you look at the guys that are beating him, they're all like top welterweights. I mean, since then, Bilal has become champion. JDM has become champion, and Sean Brady and Michael Morales just fought in a title eliminator. And now, Morales is essentially in line for the title shot. So you have to be good to beat him. And if I compare Mike Malott to that roster of guys, he's definitely the weak link. I don't think he's beating any of them. So we're just going to have to see. The thing is, though, Gilbert Burns has not fought in so long. We've never really seen Mike Malott actually step up and fight, top tier opposition. Last fight was against Kevin Holland. That's probably the best win that he's had. He did lose to Neil Magny a while back, but other than that, this is only loss in the UFC. You have to side with Mike Malott as the favorite here, just in terms of what they've done lately. And it hasn't been great from Gilbert Burns in the last few years. Co-main event, Charles Jourdain is going to fight Kyler Phillips. Expect the Canadian to win there. Mendel Nalo versus Jai Herbert, another one you're probably picking the Canadian in. Jasmine Jasudavicius versus Karine Silva is probably one of the best fights on the card. I'm hoping Jasudavicius can get the win there. I think she's really fun to watch, and that's a good one. Other than that, though, dude, it's really a weak UFC card. There's not even a whole lot of point in going through it. I don't even know a whole bunch of these names. It's not going to be the most fun card. Also on the main card is Thiago Moises versus Gage Young and Dennis Buzuksha versus Marcio Barboza. So I mean, hopefully it's fun. Usually when we see these cards and they're not super stacked, they actually end up being a good watch. So I'm hoping for a similar scenario here. Today we actually have another MMA card. It was meant to be the return of Paul Hughes, and if it was, the PFL would have had the bigger event than the UFC. Unfortunately, Paul Hughes got injured. His fight with J.J. Wilson gets called off. Instead, Derek Kelly, who is 9-0, also Irish, steps in to face J.J. Wilson in the main event. And I think that's a really solid save by the PFL. This is a good fight still. I'm going to be siding with... I think I'm going to take J.J. Wilson in this fight just because he's been prepared for it more. He's fought at a higher level, I feel, kind of. Derek Kelly is undefeated, but this is also kind of a step up, I don't know, man. But I think it will be a good fight. I mean, it's a close one. So I think this is definitely a good save. But that's your main event. Co-main event is going to be Reese McKee. I think this is his PFL debut, if I'm not wrong. He's fighting Alex Lahore. I definitely think that they're setting this up for McKee to try and get the win. And so I think that he does it. And then before, you're going to have Dovlet Yagshimuradov return off of his loss to Corey Anderson fighting Tyson Pedro. I definitely am siding with Yagshimuradov. I think he's a pretty big favorite in this fight. And that's your whole main card. It's only 3 fights on ESPN2. It's weird. They're in Belfast, and, because this was a Paul Hughes card, I guess they were trying to get the American audience to get interested in him. So the main card starts at 7 p.m., which is midnight in Belfast. So they've only got a couple of fights on the main card. Before that, a lot of prelims. And the prelims aren't bad. I mean, a lot of recognizable names on here. Chris Mixon versus Eoin Sheridan. Kaelin Lochrain versus Alan Philpott. Sharon Clark, Dean Garnett. So some solid fights, and so I'm excited that they always bring good cards to Belfast. I feel like the PFL product is always so good in Europe and not always as good in the United States, but I'm looking forward to another PFL card. You got 2 BKFC events this weekend, which is nuts. So tomorrow night in Denver, you're going to have Chris Camozzi versus Esteban Rodriguez. Now, I could be wrong, but is this fight not for the interim cruiserweight title, or is it for the full one now? Obviously, Chris Camozzi was the cruiserweight champion. He loses that to Alessio Sakara. Sakara has not fought for the belt since. I actually just checked. This is still for the interim title. So winner of this is going to be, right in line there. But I think Chris Camozzi is very good. I thought Esteban Rodriguez's last performance was very good. I think this is a great interim title fight. And, hopeful to see the winner fight Sakara. Co-main event is going to be Ramiro Figueroa versus Elvin Brito. That should be kind of fun. Josh Copeland versus Corey Willis. That should be an interesting heavyweight battle between the Youngs. It's a BKFC numbered event, so that usually means they're a little bit more stacked. It should be good. And then the next morning, literally at 5 a.m. on Saturday, you've got their debut card in Australia. It's similar to the Hawaii card. This one isn't as much about the actual fights on it. It's more so just about the location and look where we're at. Main event is going to be Hayes Heppy versus Krzysztof Wisniewski. And so that's decent. Other than that, it's going to be a lot of local Australian guys, but that Hawaii card was awesome. So hopefully, a similar kind of vibe is generated here. And then lastly, there is another IBA Pro event in Russia tomorrow. Main event is going to be Artem Suslenkov versus Artur Man. Suslenkov is an undefeated heavyweight, so maybe he gets a good win here. I'm sure he's ranked with the WBA, as a lot of these guys are, and they can get a boost up their rankings. We'll see. And the co-main event, I actually don't even think it's the co-main event. It's just the only other 10-round fight on the card is Mikhail Grigorian versus Gio Santissimo, which are fighting for the IBF Asia Lightweight Championship. So again, another fight that you'll get a rankings boost from that, and then some other guys on the undercard. But yeah, should be a good weekend of fights overall. It all starts today with PFL Belfast, literally this afternoon, which is crazy. But now that we've gone through all the fights, let's talk about some other news we've had in the last few days. Fury versus Makhmudov, we had the UK viewership number come out, not the global one, which I think is very telling of how well the fight actually did. But anyways, the fight did 5 million viewers in the UK, which, look, is a really, really great number. That's a great number for boxing. Not that many events are doing 5 million in the UK. Not many events are doing 5 million alone. So this is definitely a very successful number, I would say. It's just that we usually hear the global number come out. And you think about Taylor vs. Serrano 3 doing, I think it was 6 or so million viewers. That means that Fury Makhmudov probably did a little bit better, but if not the same. I can't imagine, outside of the UK, I don't think 1 million people in the US watched it. Probably not. Maybe. And maybe there's probably a little bit over 1 or 2 million combined with all the other countries in the world. But I don't think that this event was a huge success in comparison with the other Netflix cards. I mean, Jake Paul, Mike Tyson doing like 100 million. Canelo versus Crawford doing 40. Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua doing 30. Taylor Serrano, doing about the same from what we heard. So, in terms of the other Netflix events, this obviously was nowhere near as much of an important fight. Those are all super fights and stuff on both sides of the bill. This is the first one that it wasn't. But, it is what it is. I don't think it was promoted super great. This was their first event in the UK, and overall they did good for a boxing event, but not great for a Netflix event, is what I'll say. Speaking of that topic, Anthony Joshua, we know there's been a lot of talk about the Tyson Fury fight. Eddie Hearn is saying that he's been offered a 2-fight deal with Turkey, and that would include a July comeback against an opponent, likely not Deontay Wilder, though they're open to it. I hope it's Deontay Wilder, but it seems like they want to do an easier fight than that. They want to do more of a guy on Makhmudov's level, and I'm like, Wilder is on Makhmudov's level, but I know what they mean. Wilder does still have that power, and he's coming off a good performance, so they want to take someone that they're guaranteed to win against. And then November time is when they would come back and fight Tyson Fury. I'm okay with that plan, particularly if it is AJ against somebody like Wilder, but I'd rather them just kind of jump straight into the fight. But, if AJ does need his comeback, needs to get his confidence back, whatever. He's coming off that incident, that tragedy in December. So I understand it. I just hope that it's against a decent opponent and that Tyson Fury doesn't do anything and we can just finally get this fight this year. That's all that I care about. We had the press conference for Ronda Rousey, Gina Carano, the second one. This time you also had Nate Diaz, Mike Perry there. I thought it was a pretty funny press conference, just for no reason, just entertaining. Ronda Rousey was going off, particularly on Kayla Harrison, just ripping her to shreds and cooking her. It was crazy. I like Kayla Harrison, but Rousey completely just destroyed her. It was insane. There's not a lot of animosity between any of these guys on the card. You had Francis Ngannou telling Felipe Lins he'll need a gun to beat him, which was funny. And Nate Diaz and Mike Perry, I was wondering if they would kind of get into it, but no, pretty respectful. I think Mike Perry was saying a little bit like we gotta talk some shit, we gotta sell this, but Nate Diaz isn't somebody who's gonna fake talking shit, just for the selling of the fight. That's not what he does. People like him because he's a character, but it's because he's a natural character. But yeah, I thought it was an entertaining press conference, and I'm really excited for that. I mean, like just when you see all six of those fighters up there together, it's like wow, what MVP has done in assembling, the top tier of free agents outside of the UFC. We've never seen an event with this many big names on it that's not UFC. Like when was the last time? I don't know. So really excited to see that. Canelo Alvarez has confirmed his September 12th return in Saudi Arabia. I mean, we already knew this, but I think there's a little bit of doubt with what's going on in the Middle East. But he's saying, nope, I'm still set to fight there in September. Meanwhile, you have the Usyk event in Egypt. They're saying that they're not planning on moving that one either. So it looks like they're kind of staying strong and hoping that by September time, things have kind of cooled down. But we'll have to see if they do end up changing it. UFC 330 has been confirmed to be August 15th in Philadelphia. So shout out Philly getting a numbered event. I think it's their first time in like years since coming to that city. So that's good that they're going to come back there. Philadelphia is getting a lot of fights now with BKFC and Boots Ennis, and now they're getting a UFC numbered event. Curious who does headline 330. I think it'll probably end up being like somebody like Islam. Islam really needs to get back into the cage and defend his title. You also have Piotr Jan, who needs to come back in and defend his title. Maybe they're both on that card. I don't know. But yeah, looking forward to that. Top Rank finally announced their first card on DAZN, and that is going to be Keyshawn Davis versus Nahir Albright 2. Now, we had already known that this was going to be the next fight, but just to get it announced, like, all right, cool. It's going to be May 16th in Norfolk, Virginia, so bringing Keyshawn back home. I've already said I don't like this fight. I don't think it makes a lot of sense besides there being some family beef. I mean, Keyshawn has already beaten Albright. Although it was changed to a no contest, he's already beaten him. And then, Albright beats Kelvin Davis's brother, and Keyshawn's like, oh, I got to get it back now. And he's still in the comeback. But, like, I don't understand why he needs to come back. I mean, he took a year out of the ring, but then he comes back and beats Jermaine Ortiz. Now he's stepping down to fight Albright. It doesn't make any sense. However, he's staying active, and that's good. Co-main event is going to be Brian Norman Jr. making his comeback against Josh Wagner. A lot of people are really excited about this fight. I'm not. I feel like this is a huge pushover for Norman, considering the wins that we've seen him have at welterweight. I don't really have a lot of excitement for this fight, other than just see Norman get back in the ring and maybe get a knockout. But I'd rather see him fight another like top 15 welterweight, and hopefully after this he does so. But yeah, don't love that comeback fight, but it is what it is. And we also know that Kelvin and Keon Davis will both be returning on the card as well. I think Jan Santana is also returning on here. So it just feels good to have another top-ranked card back on and to see them kick off things with DAZN. MVP is reportedly set to offer an opponent for Katie Taylor for the Croke Park fight that's being discussed. We know that Eddie Hearn is going to Croke Park, I believe, like right now to go and try and get that deal finalized. We know that Tyson for Anthony Joshua, there's a possibility of that fight being at Croke Park as well. But I really want to see Katie Taylor get a retirement there. And MVP does have the biggest women's boxing stable like ever. So, if Katie Taylor is going to fight anybody, it's probably from MVP stable. So you have to think that they may be involved with it. I'm curious if this becomes a Netflix fight and they give her another big name and it's an MVP event. But I don't know if Matchroom necessarily want to do that for her last fight, is have MVP do it. When it seems like they are the ones trying to get Crook Park. I'm assuming that it's just going to be MVP giving Matchroom one of their fighters in the same way that Matchroom has given MVP Katie Taylor twice and given them Anthony Joshua. I assume it'll probably be a similar kind of transaction here, but cool to see the MVP is helping Katie Taylor make her retirement homecoming fight dream come true. Some IBF updates. Karen Chikadzian versus Patty Donovan has been announced for May 15th in Germany, so not that far away. That is, of course, an IBF welterweight eliminator. So winner of that is going to be ordered to fight the winner of Lewis Crocker versus Liam Paro. I also know that Emmanuel Odiase versus Nick Webb is going to be the co-main event, and that says it's for the European heavyweight title. I assume that means EBU European, so I didn't know that Odiase was already on that kind of level of trying to get those titles, but good for him. And we also know that it seems like they're not going to be ordering Vidal to immediately fight one of the next contenders after CBS signed with Zuffa. They're instead ordering David Naika and Floyd Mason in an IBF Cruiserweight Eliminator, and the winner of that will then fight Vidal for the vacant title, which is whatever. I don't know why we need an Eliminator to fight, for the title when there's not even a champion. I think that we should probably just have, I think it was Naika who was next in the rankings, just have him fight Vidal. But, it's a good fight. I mean, both Aussies, or at least Aussie, New Zealand. So that should be a good one. And the winner of that is going to fight Vidal. So hopefully they can get that fight made pretty quickly. And then we had the undercard announced for Dave Allen versus Filip Hrgovic. And I think there's some pretty solid fights on this card. What I assume is going to be co-main event is Louis O'Doherty versus Ahmed Hatim. These are two undefeated guys fighting for the British and Commonwealth lightweight championships. O'Doherty won that in Scotland a few months ago. And then you also have Michael Gomez Jr. coming off of his knockout win the other weekend. He's going to be fighting Lee McGregor, which is a great fight, actually. Lee McGregor moving up in weight after his loss to Nathaniel Collins. I like that matchup a good bit. That's a fun fight. Maxie Hughes is returning already after the loss to Pierce O'Leary, and that was just like a month ago. So I'm a little bit worried with how quickly he's coming back. He's fighting Louis Sylvester, who is decent. It was a pretty good lightweight, but it's just I feel like, Maxie Hughes is definitely better than him, but I think that's a good fight, especially with Hughes coming off of 2 losses and such a quick comeback. It actually could be a good time for Sylvester to get him. And then Ben Vale versus Dean Sutherland will also be on the card. It was announced. And I also know they're having the Queensberry debut of Asadkuja Muidinkhujayev, who is, of course, the one of the top-tier amateurs from Uzbekistan that everyone's very excited about. So, yeah, and some other, British prospects on the card. A lot of, actually, prospects are on that card. So, should be a fun stadium show in Doncaster. I'm assuming they're going to try and be able to sell it out. Obviously, they were not able to do so with the GBM show that was there last year. By the way, where is GBM? I feel like after they lost their DAZN deal, they had this ambitious plan announced to do all the heist tournaments this year. Actually, the first one was meant to be on Friday this week, and that looks like it's not happening. So I don't know what's going on with them, but hopefully they can get another event back on because I thought they had a lot of momentum last year. Matchroom Boxing announced they've signed Charlie Sheehy, which I think is a pretty solid signing. Of course, Charlie Sheehy was with Top Rank for a bit. Then, when Top Rank lost their DV deal and everything, he's one of those fighters that even before then just seemed like he was just kind of getting pushed to the side and was fighting on Pro Box TV, Hair, and other places there. So cool to see he's gotten another, big fight contract signed. Matchroom is supposedly going to be announcing both Oshaki Foster versus Ray Ford and Bam Rodriguez versus Antonio Vargas this week. So you have to assume he's going to land on either one of those cards, probably the Bam one. But yeah, Matchroom making another solid signing. BKFC announced they're going to be back in Hollywood, Florida on June 4th, and that's going to be main evented by Julian Lane, returning against Bryce Henry. Good fight. I thought that Julian Lane was going to go back right into a rematch with Dustin Pig, but we'll take this. It's a solid fight. And then some other interesting fights announced. Callum Peters is going to be back on that Nikita Zoo card on May 6th. He's going to be fighting Joshawn James, which is a step up. And I definitely think Callum Peters still beats him. I think he's a really good prospect. But Joshawn James, was an undefeated guy on Pro Box. He fought Lester Martinez. It was a fight they were, hyping him as a 50-50 for a while. And then Martinez, when they did finally fight Martinez, just kind of blew right through him. But I think that's a great step up for Callum Peters. I think that's a fun fight. Looking forward to that. And they also announced that Layla Boudouin is going to be fighting for the WBA interim super featherweight title against Paulina Angel. Angel just fought an MVP card recently. It's going to be June 11th on the Wilkins Mathieu card. And I'm interested to see that Boudouin is already in another interim title fight position where that's where she was before the Baumgardner. In fact, she may have even been interim champion with the WBA. I can't remember if it was WBA or WBO. So it would be interesting if she ends up being able to challenge Baumgardner again when her fight was completely non-competitive with the Baum. Pro Box TV have also announced that Ramon Ordonez is going to be making his pro debut with them on May 1st. Yeah, this is like the first time we've seen them sign an amateur and really hype them up. So he's going to be fighting on that Maryland card. And then lastly, just saw this was kind of interesting. Both Fernando Vargas Jr. and Amado Vargas have both signed with BKB Bare Knuckle Boxing. Not BKFC, but like the other one that fights in the triangle, I think. But yeah, so they are. It seems like they're kind of moving on from the professional boxing dreams, which is weird. Obviously, you've got the three brothers. Emiliano Vargas is light years ahead of the other one in terms of his skill and potential. Amado Vargas, he fought on Misfits, beat up Dean the Great, and I was okay. Maybe he's got an avenue here. And then Fernando Vargas Jr., he had some okay wins. I mean, he fought Callum Walsh on Netflix, got dominated, but was the co-main event to Canelo versus Crawford. So I find it a little bit weird that I don't think that they're giving up on boxing entirely, just kind of doing another fun thing and trying to maybe say, okay, maybe we're really good at this, probably got a good money for it. I don't know, but these are also the two that got into a fight in Vegas with each other. So definitely you've got three kids, and one of them has a higher ceiling than the other two, but we'll see, man. We'll see. But that's all I've got for today. Good weekend of fights coming up. I'm looking forward to it. Thank y'all so much for listening. I hope you have a great weekend, and peace out.